Art Chat is made possible by the support of the Artistic Harmonies Association. Create your next aha experience with us. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art Chat. I'm your host, Linda Riesenberg Fisler, and this is our third episode of basically starting an art business or starting up a business that you want to start up. And my co-founder and business partner at Artistic Harmonies Association, John Anderson, is here to talk with us today. And the third episode is entitled Knowing and Understanding Yourself, or Understanding Self. And don't really have much house cleaning to talk about, John. So, our blogs are still being posted out there at Artistic Harmonies, ASSOC.com. So go visit that. But it's really kind of interesting. I did give them homework, if you remember. So last time, which was, what are you doing and why are you doing it kind of thing. So this goes kind of back to that, in that you hopefully have done a lot of soul searching and really said, what I really like to do is, or where I really like to be with with my art business is here, etc. So this kind of dovetails right into the knowing and understanding yourself and what kind of business you want to start. And so I guess it says that I am assuming that kind of high level hits it. So if I've missed anything, please tell me, John.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
no, I think that's a good opportunity for us to start just discussing business in general.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we know that creative people want to stay creative, and they're looking for ways to form a business around their creativity.
Right.
And so I think that one of the most important things, and again, as Linda said, we'll repeat some of the things that we've talked about already, is that you understand that if somebody comes to you and says, well, I've got a lot of money and I want to get in the art business, that doesn't help you much, because you're really looking as a business person to satisfy a lot of different things. Right. Now, using that false scenario, because I don't know too many people that say, I've got a bundle of money and I want to get in the art business. I'll talk to you about business in general, in that you have to narrow your focus of what your idea is. To start an art business, you may decide that you don't want to be a painter, you want to be a framer, or you want to be a gallerist, or even further out there, you may want to be a travel agent that books groups to Italy to paint or to go through museums. So you have to kind of narrow your approach down to your best idea of what you want to pursue personally as your business, and more specifically, your creative art business. So that's kind of involved deciding what it is you want to do. Be specific, but be flexible, because what you're going to do after that is you're going to begin to research your idea. You're going to begin to say, okay, is this a feasible thing? Are there other people out there that are doing this? What can I do to make this different, to where people would rather work with me and buy my product or service as opposed to the people that are already out there? So you're going to differentiate what you want to do. And of course, you have to decide, again, what your purpose is. Are you looking for fame? Are you looking for fortune? Is it to improve your lifestyle? Is it to affect the community in a positive way? So you have to kind of narrow that down. And that may not come out right away, but it will come out as you've listed your ideas and begin to mold your business into the direction that you want to go.
Right. So I want to take a step before we get in too deep here and talk a little bit about the world and where we are right now. A lot of folks are probably, this is also recorded for historical purposes. So when I'm saying look at the world and where we are today, we're coming out of COVID, yay! But now we have a war in Europe. Okay, so a lot of people could be saying, do I really want to start a business at this point? And is there a better time? Is there a perfect time? And the answer is, I think, no, there's never a perfect time. And what we are going to be talking about will help you get started with a better foundation into what you want to do, and do as in what your business is and how you define your business. Because I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, and where we can, John and I are going to point out how we did this with AHA, because when I read through John's questions that I asked him to submit to me that I could ask him, I really saw myself going back to, oh, wow. So we really didn't, quote unquote, start the actual business until January, but we have been working together since February, March of last year, trying to figure out the definition that you're talking about, what it is that we decided that we wanted to do with Artistic Harmonies Association. So, so I know you went into a little bit of the first question that you sent me is, where do they fit? Where do we fit? So a lot of John's questions to me at the beginning of Artistic Harmonies Association was, let me give you a great example. Here's Linda over here going, let's call it this. Let's do this. Let's start this. Let's get the website together. And John's going, whoa, hold on. We got to figure out where we fit. Otherwise, we're just going to be like everybody else. And, we don't need an everybody else. So just kind of it was actually kind of funny, because looking back on it was like, oh, that's what John was doing. Now I get it. So the little light bulb went off when I read these. So.
And that's a great point. And I would challenge you that if you just say, well, I want to start a business, and you start to research it, and they say the first thing you need to do is decide what business in terms of structure you want to have, of sole proprietorship, partnership, et cetera. And that's where I disagree, in that, keeping in mind and in perspective that Linda and I started talking in February and March of last year, but we did not incorporate until August of last year.
Right.
So we actually, with business being such a complicated thing, involving legal, financing, sales and marketing, your business planning, protecting your intellectual property, there's just literally hundreds of things that you need to go through on a checklist, and it needs to have a certain priority. So with AHA, we're right where we want to be at this point in time, and we'll concentrate on our growth strategies that we've mapped out as we continue to move forward. So that's where you are. I say you, that's where creatives are in making that determination. You've got to conduct that research. If you're not sure what research to conduct, be glad to give you some of my time and say, here's what you need to do first.
Yeah.
Give me an idea of what it is you want. So that's where you are in that situation. And that's where AHA started. So even though I love the website and I love the fact that we really kind of jumped into it in a pre-launch pattern, the research is really, really important.
Yeah. And I mean, there was, in those months leading up to the August incorporation, there were Zoom calls going on between John and I, and there were text messages and emails. And a lot of times I would find some research and I'd say, hey, John, look at this. And then John would find some research. Hey, Linda, look at this. So we were back and forth, and then we'd get together once a week and talk about the research that we had discovered and what that really meant towards what and how we wanted to shape Artistic Harmonies. So, just for an example, Oil Painters of America, wonderful organization, love what they do. Impressionists, the Impressionist Society, love what they do. But I don't want to be OPA, and I don't want to be AIS, and I don't want to be any of the other organizations that are out there, because they're filling a need already. And it's not a need that John and I discovered. needed to be addressed. So, or, we had to have an association or something. So that's where the discussion went from that point on. And I think it was really good. So with everything that John's talked about prior to this, one of our core values is, doing something for the good. John has talked about this a number of times. And I'm not saying that no other organization does this in the art world, but it's something that we hold as one of our core values. And there are a number of different core values that creatives need to find some direction to. And, respect, creativity, individuality, determination, different connections. And then, how is that going to play out for you? Because we're talking about basically, if you want to throw the sole proprietorship angle at it, if you're an artist, a creative, or a writer, or an author, whatever, a lot of it is defining what it is that you want to paint, what it is you want to be known for, what, if I'm a writer, do I want to write novels? Do I want to write how-to instructional books? Do I want to write screenplays? Do I want to write plays, Broadway plays? So there's so many aspects of it. You really got to drill down and find yourself and what it is that you want to stick to, and know that it's not an overnight happening. The person that suddenly becomes so popular overnight because they had a great acting position in a movie, or someone got discovered them in this particular movie, that didn't happen overnight. That person's been acting for 10, 15, 20 years, and we just happened to discover them in that one fantastic role. And everything in their life changes. So there is a pattern that goes with this. So John, thinking with that in mind, what should a creative do first?
Well, first of all, let me pose a question and then answer it. And that is, well, how much research should I do? And how long should it take? It takes forever, but there is a point in your research where you will say to yourself, should I make a go of this, or should I just punt? Get to that go. Yeah, get to that go, no go place, as we call it, an aha moment. So starts with research. The next thing is you're going to determine all the things that you would need to do in terms of a business plan, a marketing plan, putting together your resources. Again, there are checklists for that. And as long as you keep your priorities correct, it will flow nicely. And you have to be able to adjust and change along with that. So I always say, make a timetable. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in starting today and you want to do 2 months of research and then begin the operation, you can do that. It's totally up to you and what your commitment is to stick with it, persist without exception, and move forward to reach your goals. So that's what you do first. Is within that timetable, you can do a pre-launch, because you'll do some testing to determine the acceptability of your product or service. You don't always sell that first painting, but you might sell the second and the third, and that may be the juice that says, yes, I can do this. And I want to do this for all my reasons that I came up with in the beginning. So that's really where you start.
Right. So, and if we talk about this in a separate, because when we say artistic harmonies, we know we aren't just talking visual arts, we're talking about all the arts. So, the book pathway of self-publishing versus trying to get somebody like Random House or whoever to publish you, a traditional publisher. There are things that they're vanity press, and that takes a lot of research before you go into that, because a lot of the vanity press will claim your rights, and you don't want them to do that. You want to keep your intellectual property, and you want to be able to say that these characters are your characters, so that when it comes to the point where it gets discovered, it being that screenplay, that book, that play, whatever that is, you have your copyrights on your creation. Let's just call it a creation, whether that be a painting, whether that be a book, whether that be whatever. Okay. a dance routine that you came up with. You know, all of that can be copyrighted out on the internet. And if you need help trying to figure out how to do that, there's a contact us page out on the website, and drop us a line and we can direct you in the right way. If you want something a little more, we certainly have consultation fees and things like that available for folks as well. But with all of that in mind, you know, when you were talking, John, I was sitting here looking back at the 20 some, almost 30 years that I've been painting and writing. And it's like, if I let the fact that I didn't sell, or I wasn't discovered overnight, or whatever stop me, I would have stopped living. So when we're creating a timetable, for example, I just want to coach people into saying, don't put down unrealistic dates, because what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself not living life, and living life feeds the creative process. So like, you know, if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, you see that I went out for a 20 some mile bike ride. Well, that, you know, I don't do that in 30 minutes. that takes a lot of time because Linda's old. But anyway, but while I'm out, I'm doing other research. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That would be a cool painting. Stop, take a picture, look at the atmosphere. You know, so I'm constantly thinking in the way an artist thinks. That barn would be cool for a scene that I'm going to write in my next book, you know, and so then I have that in my mind. So, you know, there's always that going on. So I'm not, you know, John and I are not tied to our desk, you know, 40 hours, 40, 50 hours, or 24 hours a day, however you want to say it. You know, we are, you know, networking, we're talking to other people, we're finding research. Again, still, we haven't stopped researching. We look at things that come across our desk and say, oh my gosh, you know, this is something that could impact us. Let's look at that.
Yeah, I'll just interject. I'll just interject quickly. It's that time-life balance. You have to have time not only for your business, but for yourself. Right. And that's another reason we essentially is, we're calling this episode, Know Thyself, or be aware of what your needs are. Don't neglect your needs, because you're just pouring so much into the business that it drives you crazy.
Yeah, so you'll burn out.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a work-life balance situation.
Yeah, and you'll burn out. And a lot of folks, you know, I know, I've heard it, I've been there, I've gone to the workshops and all that, and it's like, you know, oh, well, this is my job, so I'm at it 40 hours a week. Great. But are you meeting people that might be interested in buying your art? Are you, you know, you can isolate yourself, and that's not going to be that good either. I mean, yeah, do you need to practice? Do you need to continue to paint? Absolutely. Do you need to continue to write? Absolutely. I know another artist that's a writer and a painter, and he does a lot of historical writing, like on different artists and things like that. And he's got it in his schedule where he paints for 1 week and he writes for 1 week. So, and then in between all that, he's teaching, he's, cause he's at a university, he's teaching, he's having gallery openings because the university that he works has a gallery. So he's, you know, doing all of that administrative work for all of that. So it's not like he's completely isolated, and he may not be spending it. I really don't know, but he may not be spending 8 hours a day totally on writing. Maybe he's spending 4, but it's that 4 that's going to get him to the next 4. That's going to get him to the next 4. And maybe it's going to take him, you know, a month longer to do that painting or to do that other work, but it's going to be fresher. It's going to be a lot better because he's not strapped himself into one particular place for 40 hours a week. I mean, when I worked for Procter & Gamble at 40 hours a week, it was draining and it was hard to do the other stuff. But the other stuff I found made me more interested in getting my work done so that I could get home to do what I wanted to do. So again, yes, that life balance that John was talking about, it definitely, when you make your timetable, you know, don't say, well, I can do this for 40 hours a week. I know better. You know, John and I are workaholics. I will not say we aren't, but we are. And we still find time to do the things.
We're balancing a lot.
Yes. You know, we may be on the computer at night, or I may be typing him a note at 10 o'clock or something like that, but he knows he doesn't have to answer me by midnight. Okay. He gets me the answer when he gets me the answer. We allow each other to have that work-life balance. Anytime that I've texted John and said, okay, so I'm going out for a bike ride at 10 o'clock and I'll be home at 2. He's like, have a fun ride, keep your head on a swivel, don't get hit by a car. So you can work this out and not have this whole, thing hanging over your head, this dark cloud hanging over your head saying, I have to paint for 40 to 60 hours a week for me to make it. Yes, you have to paint, but let's be reasonable about this. Let's not beat ourselves up. The timetable is just going to take a little bit longer, but in the end, you probably are still going to get at the same place that you were at if you plan properly and enjoying life along with it. Right, John?
That's right.
Yeah.
And to prove that out too, a timetable is made for adjustment. It's to remind you, it's like a checklist. But if you, for instance, as Linda says, maybe you said, well, I'm going to paint for 3 hours tomorrow, and that's within the constraints of your timetable and priorities, you may put that off, or you may get so involved you'll do it for 6 hours. You can then go to your timetable and your priority list, and you can adjust that accordingly.
Absolutely.
So this is not about being so systemic that you have to get everything done when it's due and press forward. Linda said earlier, you don't want to burn out, but I'm also respective of the fact that you had to be on fire in the first place to burn out. So just be careful with that situation.
Yep.
Now, go. And so I just wanted to add that in, Linda.
Yeah, that'd be great. So bringing this back to the question of, gosh, look at the world state that we're in. If you're doing research and you're painting a number of paintings that you want to sell, or you're writing a book that you want to, now's the time to do that. That doesn't, other than your materials and what you're using, and I'm assuming that you already have all those, probably not a good assumption, but if not, that's where you can spend a lot of your time now, because the markets may not be in a position where they're going to buy art, or if they're going to buy a book, they're going to buy an ebook. Maybe you've got a bunch of hard copies out there that you can now format for an ebook and sell. So those are kind of different things that we can look at, that you can look at, put into a timetable and do that work yourself. This may be the time where we do a lot more preparation to start the business than we actually do to start the business, because of some of the uncertainties that are out there. So I think I beat that horse. That's a terrible saying, but
no, that's okay.
I think we talked about, that part of the startup. Let's go into some of the, and we kind of hit on these as well, but determinations that creatives should make if the research turns out to be favorable. So we've now done our research and we've decided that we want to move ahead with this. We put our timetable together. We know that we have to create so many things, whatever those things are, books, paintings, blah, blah, blah. And we say, okay, yeah, this is where I want to be. And now it's time to incorporate, go on. What happens when the research turns out favorable?
Yeah, well, I think one of the first considerations that you make is that you start to evaluate your resources, and you finally come to the conclusion that I don't know anything about taxes. I don't know anything about writing contracts. What kind of insurance would I need? All these things come together, and you find that, hey, I can't do it all, but I'm going to have some external needs that I need to satisfy. It's pretty hard to paint or write a book with your right hand and then your left hand doing the accounting. So you will come to the realization that, hey, I kind of need a support team as part of my resources to help me be successful. So team organizing is something you want to do. What are your needs? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You need to find out what those are, and then you have to figure out a way to strengthen your weaknesses. So that's really what happens when you reach that go, no go decision, because keep in mind, you'll then have a timetable that you're going to actually launch on that will tell you where you are, where you're going, and what you need to accomplish. So at that point, you're committed. As I like to say, with bacon and eggs, the chicken participates, but the pig is committed. So, yeah. So once you make that commitment, you're in for the long-term objectives and goals that you set out for yourself.
Right. So even at this point, and with this question that we're talking about, we've done nothing about incorporating or anything else. We've just put out what are the things that I can't do, that I know I can't do, or that I need help doing, that will free me up to do those other things that I love doing. Okay. And at this point, maybe you start, if you're an artist, you start to identify some patrons. Maybe you look at Patreon online and say, is there something that I can tie in where people are starting to pay me for what I know, and different things like that. So those, again, you're still researching at this point. I'm not saying at this point you go out and create Patreon, you look at Patreon, okay? Because there's still some things that need to be done before we actually go out and say, hey, pay me. Okay, but maybe you're starting to look at patrons who love your work. Maybe you're starting to look and identify beta readers who will be loving to read your novel and then give you feedback on it. Maybe you don't want people to read your novel until it's totally done. And that's just because I'm so used to writing in a closed, I mean, it's always just been me and my writing. Putting it out there is probably one of the scariest things. And when somebody comes back and says, God, I love this book, I sit there and go, really? Really? So John knows that, because I look at him and I go, really? And then I get all embarrassed because, all the compliments come and I start hiding, but anyway, probably a bad thing on my part. But anyway, we still have not done anything legally to start our business at this point. So again, you're at the point where you're making your go, no go, but you haven't put your foot on the gas and got everything to happen. And this is the time where I kept saying to John, can I make the website yet? Can I start to create the web? And John's going, no, we're not done yet. So we had some fun working on these things. So,
yeah.
So, okay. So, now I know everybody's sitting out there going, well, when do I start that legal process? What activities do I still have to do before I get to the point of, so go over, how a creative starts to make a go of it, what activities they should implement.
Okay. Well, first of all, we've now reached this theoretical point where you said, I'm going to make a go of this. I'm committed. I'm starting to put my timeline together. And within that timeline, I want to launch my business. I want to go out there and put together all my marketing strategies and execute those and analyze the results and do the things to find out how I'm going to be doing and whether I'm hitting the benchmarks that I've set for myself. When you need outside help on that, I'm going to give you a suggestion here that, especially as an artist, it's a little harder as a writer, but as an artist, you could actually barter some of your paintings, drawings, photography, etc., to some professionals. But I would strongly urge you not to undervalue what it is you're giving up. You should be able to explain your value in terms of time commitments, materials, the whole 9 yards. And that's a totally different subject that we're going to go into. That I believe that everything out there is undervalued when it comes to creativity. But if I approached, let's just say I was showing a piece of artwork and somebody comes up and says, "Boy, I really like that. How much is that?" And you don't tell them right away, but you get involved in a conversation and you say, "Hey, what do you do?" And they say, "Well, I'm an accountant." And you say, "Well, this painting's $5,000. If you'll give me $5,000 worth of accounting time, we could probably do some business. And then, so you can actually barter situations like that. That's just a suggestion. I'm not telling you that's the add all end all, but what I am telling you is don't undervalue your work. I'm on Linda about this all the time. I'll put her on the spot, and we're not going to talk numbers, but I'll just say, you know, what would you ask her that? And she'll tell me, and I'll go, no, got to be much more than that. But I can explain to her why, as a person that buys art, I would spend that money. And again, we'll get into that when we get into values. So set that aside, but your immediate actions is to get on that timeline, set up a time to launch your business. Begin with your marketing plan first. Make sure that you've got all the strategies that you want to do, how you want to position, or I call it couching, how you want to couch your business, summarize it, and then be able to pitch it. So that if somebody says to you, what do? You can say, well, I'm a fine artist. I not only paint, but I do A, B, C, D, and E. And do you have a collection of art? And you throw it back to them. So there's methodology in making your marketing plan and your strategies work to launch your business. Now you get compliant.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
Hold on. Yeah, I just got a question I want to interject here, John.
Okay.
When we were talking about valuing your art, we've kind of stepped around the outsides of this with me when you have been working with me. And believe me, John isn't like sitting over here pumping my ego up. This is me not knowing the art market that John is bringing to me. Okay, big difference. But one of the conversations that we got into was placing our pictures on social media, where we get lots and lots and lots of love and likes and everything, but no, and sometimes a purchase, like, you know, depending on who you are, depends on how quickly you may sell or may not sell. But do you feel, with all the work and research that you've done, that social media undervalues our art when we post it? I mean, we get a lot of love, which is really great, feels wonderful. But the fact that it's out in the public already and becomes part of public demand, that kind of inserts or interferes with or comes in contact with valuing it over because it's already out in public demand or public demand.
I definitely do. And as we're talking about starting up a business now or growing a business through this process, I intend on doing another series that is related totally to value.
Okay.
How it's determined not only financially, but intrinsically, the technical side, as Linda continues to teach me about. There's about 4 steps in valuing just from the perspective of financial, as well as that movement of value. And what I mean there is, today you finish your painting, you feel good about it, you've analyzed it, everything's up to snuff, and I'm just going to use an arbitrary figure. You say, I'm going to sell this painting for $5,000. You don't put it on the internet. Now again, we're going to introduce a new system for distributing your art that essentially is going to get you more money because it's not being watered down on an internet of people that can't afford to buy anyway. We're going to find qualified purchasers of art and tell you how to get to them. So we're going to determine that value, and through that process, that $5,000 piece of art in 2 years might be worth $6,000. And we'll justify that through our valuing process.
Yeah. So one way to think of this in an economic term, oh my God, I never thought I'd say that word. But anyway, if you look at social media as you supplying people with photos of your art, which aren't as great as looking at them in person because it doesn't show texture, blah, 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 all that stuff. So that's the supply. So we're oversupplying the demand for purchase. Is that one way of looking at it? So if we
Absolutely.
want to, and if we, so what we want to do is not oversupply. You naturally, I mean, look at OPEC, you naturally want to be in a position where you are, where the demand is high, the supply may be low, but when you've got that, the price goes up.
That's right.
Yeah. So
profitability is included in there, covering all your expenses. So I will give you a pricing strategy determining not only present value, but future value and how to make that work for you. And Linda brings up an excellent point here in that part of our strategy in helping an artist is to show you how to attract and engage a potential buyer, and then be able to present your art to that person privately. So you can say, well, you were interested in this. Here's 4 other pieces. Sorry, you can't take any pictures of them. And we have to be very careful in all that stuff. And you get that buyer, and whether they probably will display that art, which is another topic altogether.
right.
But it gives you that opportunity to increase your value.
Right. So we're going to try and create a demand
Right.
for our art. And when we also want to build relationships.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
okay. So I'm sorry for that. I took you offline a little bit. So
no, that's fine, because I think in this process of starting a business, you actually point out in interjecting that there's thousands of things that you have to think about when you're doing this, you know?
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
So again, we'll touch all those, and we'll get into pricing, we'll get into value, we'll get into future value. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, especially when you sell that.
Yep.
Meaning
Absolutely.
that you have a pretty good profit margin. So, okay.
So, yeah, which is what everybody, like Jean said in our chat that I did with Jean Peterson, she goes, I want to make money. And I'm like, well, there you go. So we all want to do that. We all want to cover our costs, but we also it would be nice to make a profit. So, so now we're at the point, John took us to the point, just getting back into our what we want to talk about on this art chat without going off again too far into the woods. But these all do interact, and I know that there would be some questions coming up, so that's why I took you off into the woods for that little bit about supply and demand and things. So now we're at the point, we've done all our research, we know it's a go, we have our marketing plan together, we have our timetable pretty much set but flexible. Now it's time to get compliant.
Right.
Walk us through some of the landmines there.
Well, yeah, and there are some landmines. You can get by with doing the minimal, but there are federal laws, state laws, local laws, and things that you would do to keep track of your finances that are not only important, they're essential to the conduct of your business. And now we go back to that, well, where are my resources as far as I need to copyright, I need a contract, I need to know how to put together a non-compete, non-disclosure agreement. And so we're going to offer some a pathway to that as well. So but you are finally to the point where you're making yourself legal and you're headed to the launch. I don't recommend that you launch before you get this stuff done. There is a pre-launch and there's time to test and maneuver and all that stuff, but we have to keep things in perspective, and getting compliant is one of them.
Mm-hmm. You don't want the IRS knocking on your door.
That's correct.
At any level. So, okay, so now we've launched, or when the launch date arrives, let's go there. What should creatives be prepared to do?
You've convinced yourself, you're in there, you're putting your timetable together. part of that process in the pre-launch period is to test market, is to say, I'm going to try this out and see if my strategy works. If it works, then I've got to look at it in terms of, hey, I don't have to make any changes. I can go to market, or in this case, I can launch, feeling comfortable about the fact that I've checked all the right squares and that I could be successful at this. And so I always say, if you're at that point and you're getting good feedback, don't wade in, dive in, swim and adapt to minimize your risk, but get in there, again, keeping in mind your work-life balance, and follow through on your commitment. Be persistent in what you do. I like to say the only way to fail is to quit, and that you have to be prepared with different degrees of failure, and be able to fix problems through your innovative and creative ideas, and through your support teams if you rely on others.
Right. Again, keep in mind that as much as Hollywood or anyone else wants you to believe that their success came the minute that they opened the door and waded in, a lot of it may have been a flash in the pan. Okay. So again, if you're very successful coming out of the gate, you're going to be looked at to continually be successful. So keep in mind that the failures isn't a bad thing. It helps you learn, and it keeps you in the game. And it, okay, it didn't work this time, but how about if I try this other thing, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it's just one of those, don't be afraid to fail, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because if you've done all of this pre-work, you can pivot, you can find something else. You have people to support you, Artistic Harmonies being one of those. So, what worked for one person may not work for you. You are not that person. You have your own personality. You have your own way to create. If you're creating exactly like somebody else, why? They already have that person. Find yourself. Okay. Again, I go back to Jean Peterson, our honorary member's time and movement series that she's creating. She's now moved away from bees and is starting to do this on human beings. And when I say do this, she's not painting on the human being. She's using studies of the human body, a person, a model, and doing a time and movement series in that because she's been enjoying that so much. And that's really Jean. What she's putting out is her work. Could I copy it? I certainly can, but why would I want to? It's just, it makes me think about my work, absolutely, but in how I want to express myself. And that's a good thing, but I don't need to copy Jean because Jean's Jean and her work is marvelous. Same with Joe McGurl. Joe's work is marvelous. George Gallo's work is marvelous. Juliet Aristides' work is marvelous. They're all individuals who paint in all different styles, but it's their voice, it's their expression. So you need to be persistent, like John said, and you need to accept failure, and that you're not going to get, you're not going to hit it. You're not going to hit a home run every time you get up to the base, up to the plate. That's what I meant to say. So yeah, so great advice. And I guess that your next question that you sent me, John, that we're going to go into is, how should the chosen business ascribe to the idea of innovation? So we're there, and now we're at the point where we have to, maybe pivot and become innovative.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit that as a business person over the years, I'm kind of, I am non-traditional, and I challenge existing ways of doing things. Now, in a way, that makes me a creative business person. And to me, innovation and creativity is the same thing. The only thing that you're doing when you innovate is you're finding out the things that make you different, number one, and we talked about that earlier, and then continue to test and to roll out new creative ideas to see if they work. You're in business now and you're checking out all the different things, and you're constantly reviewing the process of creating, deciding, acting, evaluating what you've done. And folks, that's strategy. That's what your marketing strategy and innovation is all about. So that's kind of a quick summation of how do you innovate as a creative. And I'll tell you, Linda and I still laugh at a banana on the canvas. You have to give whoever that artist was some credit to tape a banana on a canvas and get millions of dollars. So that's testing the limits, but hey, you'll be surprised that when you get into this new method of valuing art, what you'll find out about buyers. Mm-hmm. It's phenomenal. You'll find out that some people love modern art, some people don't understand it, some people stick with the traditional types of art or fine art, some people collect older art. So you just have to make your way through based on what you're doing as a business.
Yeah. So I guess we've kind of glossed over putting together the timetable and the plan and coming up with what it is we want to do, what's that mm-hmm. primary thing. But mm-hmm. so to tell us a little bit about what should be done around the primary objective in defining that in a business sense.
Yeah, well, in a business sense, and we're going to kind of circle back to the opening of this art chat, that what you're attempting to do here is to put yourself in a position to be famous, be successful, make a lot of money, be a teacher, help the community. That purpose is part of your objective and your long-term plan. And as long as that's balanced and includes the right mix, then you have to set that in motion to get off on the right foot. And you have to accept the challenges as they come, seize the opportunities. And as Linda says, you have to be able to pivot. And all the time you're doing this, you're improving your skills and you're staying true to your core values and beliefs. So you're developing new skills, you're experiencing everything, you're passing that on through your connections, and it's going to help you with your long-term plan. You'll be able to focus better, analyze better, and achieve all the things that are involved in your objectives and goals. Yeah. So, and by the way, you can have more than one objective, and that they might be placed up on your timetable that says, well, in year 1, this is my objective. In year 2, this is my objective, and these are the goals I need to reach in order to satisfy that objective. So again, we'll get into those massive details as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's such things as 1-year plans, like John was talking about, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, so that you can constantly keep yourself improving and working towards that so-called overnight success that everybody thinks happens. So, which doesn't happen overnight. So, yeah. So it's the other thing is. Developing new skills and experience and reach out. I think, really challenge yourself to think about what it is that you want to do. And that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, you can't go into this, for example, saying, well, I probably won't get a lot for my art, or I'm not getting a lot for my art, or I'm not getting a lot for my books. What am I doing wrong? Constantly under that cloud. I'll just go out and teach, because that's where the real money comes, is when I start teaching, because what you're doing is you're devaluing your art. And what I'm saying is, you're not devaluating your art because you're teaching, you're devaluating your art because you're not finding the people who want it. And how do we do that? And so part of Artistic Harmonies Association is not only focusing on the artist or the writer or the dancer or whoever, but also looking at the people who collect those things, the reader who loves to read, the artist or the person that comes in and wants to purchase somebody's art because they love the way they paint and they're expressive in their own way. Uniqueness is very much a big product. I don't even say differentiator, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. So, I can go out and buy XYZ artist, and I'm going to buy XYZ artist because I love their work. But why do I want to go out to ABC artist who paints like XYZ artist and purchase something when I'm already invested in XYZ? So, that's the collector side of the pond that we're also investigating and researching and looking at, and how do we reach those people as well? So that's where we're different. That's to me is the business differentiator between us and the other associations that are out there. Is we are going to look at making you think about your creative work as the creative entrepreneurship of putting that out there, whatever that product is, and finding people who can appreciate your uniqueness and what you're doing and what you have decided you want it to be. So, and that's the big difference. If you look at any product that's out there, there are 10 different types of Bounty towel or paper towels out there. And everyone will sit there and tell you that Viva is the best paper towel to use when you're painting. Bounty stinks. And I used to work at Procter & Gamble, and I told Bounty that. I told my Bounty friends, this stinks. You can't use this towel when you're painting. And they were like not all that interested because they thought that was a very niche market. But I tell you what, I see more Viva towels with oil painters than I see anywhere else. So sorry, Procter & Gamble, but you don't win out on that one. But again, there are 10 different products, and each one of them meet a certain person's need. Some of it may be cost, some of it may be the quicker picker upper, some of it may be I use these for painting, because they work really well. Viva has a very soft texture to it, almost feels like cloth. So it's it's great to use in painting. So just if you can step back, take yourself out of this art entrepreneurship that you're doing and just look at different consumer products that are out there and say, why does this work? And you'll boil down to it. Maybe it's easier for me because I did work at a consumer products company, but they still had to find that primary objective, that primary thing they wanted it to be, and then find the market for it. You need to do the same thing, is the bottom line. So hopefully what we talked about today gets you thinking in that direction of what it is you want to be, what is your main objective, your primary objective, and how are you via timeline and marketing plan going to get yourself there? And gosh, do I need help? Who do I turn to? Us.
Yeah.
Okay, we're here. AHA is here for you. So is there anything else, John, that you want to put on top of that?
I think we've covered a tremendous amount here today on this topic, which is, again, knowing yourself. Hopefully, as you go through all this and maybe listen to this 2 or 3 times, you'll jot down some notes and say, well, have I done this? Do I need to do this? That will be helpful to you. I'm just going to reemphasize a couple things. Number one is that you need to know your personal value to the business. If I was constructing, let's just call them the numbers, the financials for any business, I would sit down and say, okay, what's the cost of all the materials, the overhead, the things that I need to do from a standpoint of getting up and being involved in business? And then I would say, what do I want to pay my employees? What do I want to pay myself? And then I would look at, okay, how am I going to market this? What's this going to cost? There's a whole string of things that you need to look at and consider. And at the very end, was it profitable? And it should be. So don't undervalue yourself to gain profitability with without taking care of yourself directly. I'll use this as a passive example, but if someone were compelled to go to work at $25 an hour, their actual value after taxes, expenses is pretty low by the time they pay for their necessities, house, and so on. Now, I don't tell you that to depress you. I'm just saying, you know what you're worth. And I think from a creative standpoint, creatives are worth a tremendous amount. I think we were put on this earth for one reason, well, multiple reasons, but number one, to appreciate the artist, the art community, and the end products of what creativity does for us as human beings. So again, I think Linda and I could probably do this 20 times a day and never cover the same thing, but that's all I really want to add is value yourself, value your business, make it worth your while.
Yep. Sounds good. So thanks, John, for all of the information that you brought to us today, and really enjoyed talking to you about this topic. I do think that, you know, we as artists get a little sidetracked on some things, and that keeps us busy and probably off some of the things we should be paying more attention to in the long run. So I think a lot of what we said here today will be thought about, and hopefully, again, if you all out there in listener land have any questions or anything, there's a contact us page on the website, which is artisticharmoniesassoc.com, and you know, visit us over there. You can contact us there. That comes directly to me, and I can forward a copy to John if he has if you have questions for John. So you know, please do that. There are a bunch of blogs over there that talk about a lot of different things as well, and if you become a member, there is some quick clips videos that will talk to you about creating a real quick objectives, strategy, goals, and measurements plan. So, and that's just a really very quick way that you can do this. It was basically based on a, they call it a OGSM is what they call it, but it basically something that the Japanese used that was brought over to America and used in the American car manufacturer area of the business, and a lot of other businesses have started using that tool, and it helps to have something written down so that you can go back and visit it. So yeah, I see you smiling, John. What's up?
My brain is constantly
going.
Yeah.
All righty. So again, be glad to answer any questions. Thanks for listening. John, thanks so much for your information and guiding us along and creating our business. And it really has, you know, looking back at what we did with Artistic Harmonies, really, you know, in that first year before or 8 months or whatever, before we actually incorporated, has been, you know, it's like, oh, that's what he was doing here. I thought you already went past that stage. So it's very easy to go past this stage, because it does take a lot of work, and it does take a lot of research, and it does really take you drilling down to what it is we want to do. I mean, I was ready just to, you know, when I was talking with John, and he was really good at pulling me back away from that, is like, well, let's just go out and do what's already out there, but make it better. Well, how are you going to make it better? I don't know, but we're going to do, you know. And John was like, no, let's not recreate the wheel. We don't need that. And that's how we came into what we want to be. And without John on the other side pulling me in and making me think about things, it was a good exercise. And now looking back on it, I can see what you were doing. At the time, I wasn't real sure, but I really get it now. So
well, and we've done a lot of brainstorming too, in order to differentiate. And we have some proprietary solutions, and we talked about one today, how to value and how to present, that other people won't do or can't do. But we're going to separate ourselves and show you how to be successful with these new innovations.
Yep. Sounds good. So again, thanks everybody. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
John. Yep. Bye. Art Chat is made possible by the support of the Artistics Harmonies Association. Create your next aha experience with us.